Welcome into another edition of New Track Record Podcast from the WELT studios in Fort Wayne. Caleb Hatch, Justin Kinney with you. Exciting times, about to embark on the second biggest race weekend in the NTT IndyCar Series, the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach, the 50th edition. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, 50th overall, right? Including the Formula 5000 and F1 starts. Correct. Either way, a huge deal. So excited for Long Beach. I'm always excited for Long Beach every year. It's never really about the racing, even though we've had good moments in past years. It's just like the 500. It's the spectacle of it. And yes, it just looks so cool. I hope to go one day. But yeah, really ready for Long Beach.
We got some listeners out there that always invite us out.
Mm-hmm.
And one of these days, we're just going to show up. We won't tell them. I think it's Steve, isn't it?
Yeah, Steve, yes.
We won't tell them. We'll just show up and surprise them and say, hey, we're here for the race. But I feel like Long Beach, for me, is, all right, the season's getting real.
Yes.
As much as I like, obviously, the start and the excitement at St. Pete, I feel like once you get to Long Beach, all right, we're really going to start humming along. And the excitement starts to build, obviously, going into May and then the rest of the season. I feel like Long Beach, with its tradition, with its status as one of the, what would you say, the 10 biggest races in the world?
That's a good point. I mean, Indy 500, Daytona 500, Monaco,
Rolex
Silverstone,
24,
Rolex 24, Dakar Rally, Le Mans.
Yeah,
12 hours at Sebring, maybe?
Maybe. Sure, there's a couple.
Long Beach is definitely on the list.
Yeah, I think we're top 10. It's probably up there. So, yeah.
Maybe the Baja 1000 would be
right.
The other ones.
Maybe some random people will say the race up Pikes Peak. Depends on who you ask. But yeah. I think Long Beach is at the back end of a top 10 if you averaged it out and ask a bunch of people. But so for me, I think the Long Beach weekend is really where it's like, all right, things are getting real. Part of that is because once we hit Long Beach, we really start hitting a stride of the schedule, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm excited. I know we'll get to our picks later, but somebody's got to beat Alex Palou.
Right.
We'll see if it happens this weekend.
Yeah, I never said hi. Hello.
Oh, hi. Yeah, by the way, hello. Back in the studio.
We dove,
after a vacation last week. So good to be back in the 40-degree weather and windy. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Is it good to be back?
It's an absolute pleasure to be here. But no, good to be back here in the studio, and it is race weekend. So super excited because this is the longest break we'll have between races for the rest of the season, correct? Do we have any other 3-week breaks?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. So I know that we made it through a long off season. We made it through the sporadic first couple races of the year, and now we'll start really hitting our stride here with Long Beach coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, so I guess let's dive in to Long Beach. A lot of cool stuff, obviously, happening. Graham Rahal won the pit stop competition on Thursday night, so maybe that's a good omen for him and his team. You have, obviously, just the sponsorships. We have some sponsorship changes with drivers with the spotter guide out since we're recording on Friday morning, so ahead of practice, which starts in just a few hours. But changes a new look for Nolan Siegel with Onsemi on board. You have Fleet Cost and Care with Graham Rahal, which we mentioned. Bryant still on board with Marcus Ericsson. Prefab home wiring with Kyle Kirkwood. That's a new one. Devlin DeFrancesco in the MyJack car, along with Louis Foster. So that'll be fun to tell apart. Root Insurance, as we mentioned last week, with Marcus Armstrong and Meyer Shank. Connor Daly added Mankind in the Tired of Pricks car. It's a diabetes insulin provider.
Fitting with Connor
76 Daly. Still on the cars, the 76. So that's cool, along with that Cyclum Next Gen Travel Center. So that is on board as well. So a lot of new looks for these cars this weekend. This is big and something that I think is huge for the event, beyond just being the 50th, but for the first time in quite some time, and I'm not sure off the top of my head how long it's been, but this will be on broadcast television, not on cable.
It will be, and it is a big opportunity. Yes, it's the Masters is going on, etc., but this is a way to showcase your second biggest event on the schedule, and it feels big, it looks big, and that's very important. We've talked about that in the past, so hopefully we can put thermal behind us. And
what's thermal?
And come out of the weekend feeling good, both with action on track, the show, as we say, and the presentation. We'll get to that. And hopefully maybe a good TV rating. Can we get north of 1 million viewers? I think that's not too much to ask, or at least it shouldn't be.
No, I don't think so. And a couple other sponsor things. You have Dex Imaging with Scott McLaughlin back on board. And also, one of my favorites, Liquid IV, will be a partner with Juncos Hollinger Racing for Long Beach and Nashville.
Very nice. So a lot of sponsorship announcements, as you mentioned, for this week, considering the prestige of this event. Easy to sell, I would feel, for the Long Beach Grand Prix.
For sure. And another storyline, somewhat IndyCar related, Robert Wickens will be in the IMSA top-level sports car race this weekend at Long Beach. This is the first time he's raced at a top level. I mean, he's done the touring car essentially series.
Right. Yeah.
But this is really cool that he'll be a part of it this weekend.
Just the opportunity for Robert Wickens to race is amazing. And regardless of where he finishes, what he does this weekend, it's going to be pretty cool to have him back on track. And he's being thrown into, coming back first highly competitive race on a street course isn't necessarily easy, particularly with the special controls that he has to use. So that will be kind of maybe a side storyline of sorts with the weekend for IndyCar fans. For
sure. So let's dive into Long Beach itself, taking a look at the schedule and our picks and what we expect to happen this weekend. And also, we talked about Fox on broadcast, but I think we need to talk more about Fox as well going into this weekend. The schedule overall, so today, Friday, April 11th, Practice 1, all times Eastern Time, 6 o'clock for Practice 1 on FS1. Saturday, 11:30 Eastern, FS1 for Practice 2. Qualifying 2:30 Eastern on FS2. And then the warm-up at noon Eastern on FS1 on Sunday. 4:30 is the broadcast start time on Fox on Sunday. And I think I saw the green flag time was like 4:47. Is that right?
I know the coverage starts at 4:30. So
yeah, 4:47.
Right.
90 laps, which I believe is also 5 laps longer than what was last year.
What does that help take away fuel strategy? I don't think no matter what distance, you're going to have some sort of fuel strategy, depending on when the yellows come out and all that. We're also expecting significant tire deg at this race, similar to what we had at Thermal, right?
Yes.
It's the same tire that they had at Thermal. So it should affect or will affect how teams approach race day and pretty much the entire weekend, particularly qualifying, because of that tire deg. And that means every practice is going to be very important to figure it out because it is a new tire at Long Beach. Oh, and it's the first time we've had the hybrid at Long Beach. So a lot of questions heading into the weekend on how this will go. We're just hoping for a good show at this point, right?
Yes.
I mean, St. Pete was kind of a snoozer. I mean, the excitement of being the season opener helps, but it was kind of a snoozer. Thermal, we talked ad nauseum about that. Better racing, but had issues in terms of the look and feel, of course, of the race. We're going to have no problems with that with Long Beach. We're just hoping for a good show and a good race. And hopefully we get that for the 50th annual Long Beach Grand Prix.
And going back to Fox, it feels like a pivotal weekend. You mentioned with the racing and what we saw at St. Pete, less than desired. I mean, outside of that opening lap crash, we haven't had a lot of crazy, I guess, if you will.
That's the only yellow of the year
in
so
the
far.
season. So I would expect more of that just because it's a tight street circuit, even tighter than a St. Pete. But for Fox, I mean, this is, I don't want to say it's make or break because I think that's maybe too early, but it's a pivotal weekend for how people feel about the presentation and how it's received, and not just growing the audience number, but how everything is done. Like, there's so many good things that we've seen with Fox. Actually using the little Aero pop-up box graphics, right, between drivers, the overlay over the Aero screen. I know teams are mad about it, but it looks really cool. There's a lot of cool features with that. The drone shots are amazing, right?
I mean, the in-car, when they were showing how to change brake bias and stuff like that.
The cutaway car is awesome.
Yep.
So there are a lot of good things, but stuff you got to get right. I mean, timing and scoring, right? And to be clear, I've given them a pass so far because it hasn't happened during a race, right? It's happened during other sessions and whatnot. But during the race, right, you got to make sure that works. Maybe a few tweaks with that for qualifying, right? Because we've had issues with qualifying in terms of what they're showing us or not showing us, really.
Right. I mean, we're missing the Christmas tree, as we used to call it in qualifying, right? With who was running green, who was running red on track. You said it's not a make or break. It's not a make or break, but I think it's as I worded it on Twitter, a put up or shut up week for IndyCar on Fox. Continue to tell us how important IndyCar is to you, and you can't get the broadcast spotless. I mean, this is, as we said, the second biggest race on the schedule. So they don't need any graphical errors. No Scott McLaughlin when it's supposed to be Stingray Rob and vice versa. No timing and scoring issues. No power outages. Right, regardless of whose fault that was. Let's make sure that doesn't happen. And if it does, don't go to the NASCAR race. This is the Grand Prix of Long Beach. It's a very, very important race for the circuit and the series and auto racing at large. It needs to be presented as such. And I feel like, to me, Fox has already lost the benefit of the doubt, but I think you're going to even if you don't clean these things up, the longer it goes, the more people are going to be frustrated. And I think this is the week to make sure you put together an absolute banger. Yes.
And to be clear, I think I'm willing to go at least through the Indy 500. And look, we're still going to watch, right?
Oh, yeah.
But in terms of our opinion of what they're going to do, look, I think the talent they've assembled is great. Like, it's not about that. It's just some technical things to work out. And it's unfortunate that there was no spring training for Fox to work out some of those glitches. True. And I think maybe that's a part that we haven't talked about, and that is, in a way, unfair to Fox. You know, if IndyCar had a spring training event, Fox could send their talent out there, get interviews and such, which they do with the whole content day thing, but also beyond just doing a mock race call, which they did, but also just be on site and work through some of these problems. And yes, it's different from track to track, but you can learn from setting up and turning down equipment each time, no matter where you're at.
I don't know the answer to this question in terms of the open test later this month at Indy. That's not broadcast, right?
I don't know. That's a good question.
That would be a perfect opportunity for Fox to work on the logistics of the Indianapolis 500 during that test. Maybe if it's not even streamed on FS1 or
like, could it be a YouTube thing?
Exactly. To help out the logistics. But coming back to Long Beach, okay, we're 3 races in now. Race 3, this is a huge event. Let's clean up. I don't want to hear about everything that Fox has planned or what Fox can do for IndyCar if they can't get the basic things right. And that's kind of that's my attitude heading into this weekend.
Also, with that, as you mentioned, it's a big stretch for IndyCar. You have 3 of your 5 non-Indy 500 biggest races of the schedule all packed before Indy. It was St. Pete and Long Beach and Barber. So it's you got to build momentum, right? And the schedule has it set up that way, outside of course thermal, and hopefully we get momentum built with Fox. I feel confident that it will go well. I really do.
Yeah, I do too. I still feel, and I understand, like, things happen. I'm not putting entirely the blame on Fox and some things with the series. As things happen, right?
Yeah.
But okay, it's time to start, delivering in terms of what we expected, because I think and maybe it was unfair, is we came into the season expecting IndyCar on Fox to just blow us away from the jump. Mm-hmm. And maybe that was unfair. It's unrealistic. But now that they've had a couple races to get into it, now I think our expectations are justified.
So let's talk about expectations for the race. You mentioned with 5 extra laps, is that going to be a game changer for fuel strategy? I think we'll still have it, because I think we'll have multiple cautions for the first time this season. I think that will be a factor in this race. You look at, everyone's chasing Alex Palou. Do you expect him to make it 3 for 3?
He's going to be my pick to win the race. Until somebody beats him, I'm picking Alex Palou. And I hope, for the sake of conversation, that it's somebody else. But at this point, I haven't even looked at the odds yet. But at this point, he's the favorite until somebody beats him, right?
So you're going with Palou. I will go... Oh, man, I'm torn between a Penske or Andretti, because both are so strong at this track in particular. I'm going to go with Colton Herta.
Who's won this race before.
Correct. And he's always super fast at this track. So I think he'll get a win. I don't expect Palou to win. I get that he's off to this hot start, but I don't expect him to win. I think, and yes, we've had this, right? We had Pagenaud go, 3 for 3 in 2016, Dixon go 3 for 3 in 2020. So I guess we're due in terms of the years.
Palou's done it.
But I don't think Palou will win. That's
now
my pick.
That wasn't the start of the season, right? When's the last time we've had somebody start the season?
Well, Dixon did it.
In 2020?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. He did do that. I keep, because 2020 was so wonky. I keep forgetting that year because it was so crazy. 3 different teams have won the previous 3 races. Penske with Newgarden in 22, Kirkwood with Andretti 23, and Scott Dixon with Ganassi last year. So it would be nice to continue that streak of different teams to win. Looking at you, potentially McLaren and the Pato Award. But no, I'm going to go Alex Palou to win this race he has not yet won. And the way he has started the season has been impressive. Until somebody beats him, I'm going to pick him. And even if somebody beats him, I may pick him at Barber.
You're just going to pick him every race?
The dominance being displayed by Alex Palou over the last couple of years just makes me trend his way. And every time I think, okay, he can't possibly do this or that, he pulls it off. So we'll see if he can make it 3 for 3 to start the year at Long Beach.
We shall see. Excited for Sunday. So we lead off with Long Beach. Obviously, that's the big storyline. Anything else you're looking for out of this weekend?
Well,
whether it's on track or off track?
I mean, I just it continues to interest me on, and we talked about this in previous podcasts, about maybe some of the teams that we expected to hit the ground running more than they have. Foyt in particular. When you look at, I think Meyer Shank has been impressive. Can Felix Rosenquist continue what he's done, at least, the first 2 races in terms of starting up towards the front and stuff like that. I wish there was more of a real push to heighten the battles in the midfield. It means a lot, of course, in Formula One, because every position in the team championship is millions of dollars. But I wish we had that a little bit in IndyCar. But I'm kind of just interested to see who can navigate the streets of Long Beach. And the interesting thing is with Long Beach is, if you're just caught up in the wrong thing at the wrong part of the track, it can end your day really quick. And so we'll see how that goes. And maybe what's interesting is maybe we have a pile up like we traditionally have on street courses, and IndyCar has struggled to handle those in a timely manner and throwing flags, yellows. So maybe this is a week where we see something like that happen and IndyCar handling it well. I think that could be a storyline to watch. But also, I really think that the drivers, too, are similar to my thinking in that, okay, now we're hitting the stride of the season, the pre-Indy 500 stride. It's a big event. It's really time to start buckling down and focusing on the long term before you get to May, where your vision doesn't go past the Indianapolis 500. So I think the next two races are pivotal to really set the stage for the points championship race that we'll talk about in detail. That we'll talk about in detail after the Indianapolis 500. So, your first
that was
couple
a close
races,
call.
I know,
Close call by you.
I have not looked at the point standings. I know that Alex Palou is in first. Other than that, I don't know anything. But just saying that, okay, the first two races you're finding yourself, these middle two races, until you get to May, and even the road course race to me is like Indy 500 prep.
Speaking of Alex Palou, there's a race where he's going to be the favorite.
There you go. So I think these next two races are pivotal because when we get to the back end and we get into June, then we're like, all right, where is everybody at? And races like Long Beach where you can be derailed and when it's not entirely your fault because of the confines of the street course. And then once we get to Barber, I think these next two races are important. And two, if Alex Palou can win one of these next two races, and then, like you mentioned, his success at the road course, I think these are pivotal next couple races to make sure that we don't get into June where, once again, everybody is just trying to figure out how to catch Alex Palou at the top of the standings.
And a big race stretch for Scott McLaughlin, for Will Power, right, where they've had issues, whether self-inflicted or not, in the first two races, trying to get back up front. I mean, last year, Penske was completely derailed after Long Beach because of the push to pass gate thing, and we don't need to revisit that. But so it just shows you, like you said, how important it is to start well. And obviously, Alex Palou has started as good as you can on the season. Let's get to some other things in IndyCar, and one thing I guess I want to rant about. So Katherine Legge not going to compete in the Indy 500 this year. It was, Marshall Pruitt had detailed, look, they have the sponsor in ELF. They obviously had the driver in Katherine Legge. They had Honda as an engine supplier. And this was not like in years past where we're talking about a team that doesn't have a chassis that's trying to like align. This is more, you have everything ready with the driver. They just need a spot. And It didn't happen. And instead, I get to add insult to injury. Branded, which is like the management firm, even posted this, which I think is like, this is a shot. But it said, we're expanding and pivoting our Indy 500 Katherine Legge program with a multi-race program in NASCAR for 2025 with our partners at ELF Cosmetics.
So basically taking the money, the sponsorship money they had in hand for an Indianapolis 500 ride and transitioning it into a, seven race to 7 races or whatever.
Yeah.
7 race appearances for Katherine Legge in Cup.
Xfinity.
In Xfinity, excuse me.
Yes.
For the rest of the season.
So you had everything ready on a platter. And you look at Honda teams, right? Andretti, they added Marco as a 4th. They weren't going to add a 5th. There was like rumors of, Brian Herta Autosport maybe doing like a partnership thing, but they're not going to be till 2026 is our understanding. Ray Hall added Takuma Sato. They have 4 cars. They're essentially full. Meyer Shank has 3. They're full. Dale Coyne said no, and so they're sticking with 2. Ganassi didn't want to add an extra car. So, I mean, this is where we're at.
Well, right?
And I think it's crazy because Pruitt even said as much that, Penske will try to, help push this along. And if anyone wants to say, oh, she's not, she's not that talented of a driver. We're talking about the woman who has the fastest 1-lap and 4-lap qualifying averages for a woman in IMS Indy 500 history. So, I mean, that's not the issue here. You had everything ready on a silver platter, and team said no. And I get that you don't want to like compete against yourself, But I mean, look at the field. I mean, look how many rookies we're talking about here. You know, like it's not like, and I guess teams who have rookies say, well, you know, we don't want to compete against ourselves. I mean, Rahal doesn't want to compete against Louis Foster, right? Prima, which I mean, Chevy wasn't an option, but they don't want to compete against Robert Schwartzman. Jacob Abel, I think that's really where this comes down to is a rookie. They don't want to compete with him. And making it harder for him because Coyne had the issue with Siegel last year, right?
Right.
He crashed, didn't make the race, gave it his all. But, I mean, this is where we're at. And I think for them to pivot like this and announce it so publicly that this is why they're doing it, they couldn't find a ride, even though the money's there. I mean, if you have money for 7 Xfinity races, I mean, this program is starting at Rockingham April 19th, so next weekend. With Jordan Anderson Racing, they'll sponsor that. That's the first of at least 7.
At least 7, so minimal.
So you have the money for the Indy 500, without a doubt, and then some. This is not a good look for the series.
Anytime a driver sponsor combination cannot get a ride for the 500 that has everything set is disappointing, because we're at a premium with drivers that have a budget to bring. And that's the thing. Katherine Legge, by all indications, had a budget, had an Indy 500 budget to bring, and still nobody wanted to run her. I feel like regardless of how you feel about Katherine Legge's abilities, more drivers in the field is better. Maybe a controversial take, but you or I are in agreement. I would rather just have 33 than 34.
The brutality of sending one driver home.
Just one driver. You know, I've said before, start all 34.
Yeah, we saw this in, was it 2012 or 2013 when Michel Jourdain Jr. with Rahal was the one driver sent home. I forget the year. I think it was 2012. You don't want that. And also, like last year in the Indy 500, didn't she have an engine issue?
I believe so.
Like, yeah, she had the pit stop problem, but I think there was also an engine issue, or maybe that was 2 years ago. Either way, the speed was there a couple years ago, and she found speed last year when, I mean, look, she's been with Rahal or Coyne, and It's been a struggle last couple years. So I just think this looks really bad. You want to grow the sport. You want to have more entries. There's no reason for the 500 to just be this closed off thing. And part of it is the economics of it. They've made it closed off.
Correct.
Where it's leader circle and then other full-time teams, get better access. I mean, part of the problem is if you're not a leader circle car, you're not really making much money on an Indy 500 endeavor. And that's a problem.
And that's the thing that you mentioned to me earlier this week, too. If you qualify for the Indianapolis 500, you should get $500,000. Just starting the race, 33rd, you're getting a check for $500,000.
Yeah.
The financial incentive needs to be there. Now, the overall purse has gone up. Credit to Penske, Roger Penske, and Penske Corp for doing that, but it's still not at the level to where starting the race can cover a fair amount of the budget to run the Indianapolis 500, right? So it's still a losing proposition for a team if they want to take on another added car to still just start, 32nd, 33rd. I think the biggest thing for me is you had not only a driver, but you had a committed sponsor in ELF.
And you had an engine lease ready.
Yeah, I mean, Honda was like, yeah, let's go. Who's running her? And everybody's like, not me.
Here is how crazy. So I talk about $500,000 to start. So Connor Daly, who was not leader circle last year with Ryan Reinbold, finished 10th. Obviously, had a good race, but because he wasn't in the leader circle, their payout as a team was $159,000. That's a problem.
Pitiful.
Like that should not happen.
But
Christian Rasmussen, who $128,000 as a rookie last year. Takuma Sato, $119,500 for finishing 14th. Again, not a leader circle entry. So like these leader circle entries have huge boosts. Stingray Robb, 228,300 for finishing 16th. That was not a leader circle entry car last year for Foyt. I mean, you can go on and on. I mean, Larson, 178,000, and that's, winning rookie year and getting the bonus there. It's just Elio, 102,000, finishing in 20th. Like, I'm not saying you should be making, close to 7 figures for finishing 20th, but 102,000 as a one-off is insane. And I get it. There are sponsors and all this stuff. I understand. But you want to attract more entries, give more money to those who are filling out the grid. And that's just simply not happening.
No, and
easy for me to say it's not my money.
It's not your money. I think there's a variety of factors. We have to remember that still, as far as we know, the Indianapolis 500 financials help cover the remainder of the season. Now, those numbers are getting better in terms of the Indianapolis 500 being independent and not having to subsidize the series, but it's still substantial. So that's a considerable problem for sure.
I mean, even 300,000 to just start is like a starting point. Yeah. We have, I don't know how many, but looking at this, I mean, there are probably at least half a dozen who are making under $200,000. And yes, I understand if you're starting in the back, like you're not making as much money. That's how it works. But I mean, like Ryan Hunter-Reay got $102,000. Qualified Fast 12. Yes, he finished 26th. Like what are we doing here?
Yeah, I mean, it's gone up. I remember just recently it not even being in the hundreds of thousands, it being in the tens of thousands you were making. Start 30th and finish 26th and make $82,000 or something like that. So, yes, it needs to – there's just a variety of issues, but I think it just comes down to the fact that you had a chassis – or all you needed was a team, right?
Yeah, you just needed everything. A team with a chassis.
Now, easy for us to say a chassis plus, I would imagine, pit crew and engineer to run that car.
Yeah, you're probably looking at least $1 million, and that's excluding the sponsor,
right?
Which, I mean, you already have on board. But I just look. There's no reason for IndyCar to keep battling around 34 or 35 entries every year. I understand the excuses are that you only have 2 OEMs, but you have an old chassis. It's been around long enough. You can't tell me that there's not enough chassis to go around. But yes, that's what was essentially been said in the past. And I'd be making the same argument if we're talking a Stephen Wilson who had everything put together and couldn't get a ride. And that's happened to him before, I believe. I mean, it's happened to several drivers. But it's just like, this should not keep happening.
It shouldn't. And we've said it before, traditionally it's been not being able to get an engine lease. That wasn't a problem with Katherine Legge.
No.
She had an engine lease with Honda. It was set. She just needed a team to run her. But, taking devil's advocate, speaking of Dale Coyne, he said, if I'm competing against myself to make the race and one car miss the race, why would I run another car if I'm potentially competing against myself? I understand that.
Why do you think you're competing against yourself? That's not having enough confidence in your team.
Well, I think we know. I think Dale Coyne's a realist to know where he's running, or even Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan saying, we got enough problems qualifying all of our cars recently at Indy 500. We don't need another one. And then it's also personnel. Like, how many of these teams that are, underfunded have extra staff members just sitting around waiting to be a pit crew and be an engineer and a crew chief and strategist and stuff like that. So,
but a committed sponsor,
true,
would pay for these things.
Very true. I get it.
I think this is more of a factor of the economics of the payouts not working. I understand if you don't make the race, like you're not getting a payout, and that is brutal, unless you're a leader circle entry, and we've seen that happen several times in the last few years.
Right.
But getting 102,000 or whatever to be in the race, that's not enough.
I think if team owners knew they could break even by making the race, they'd be more committed to running extra cars.
I mean, the tire bill is probably more than 102,000 for the month.
I think so. Oh, definitely, absolutely.
I know that's just my rant, and it's silly that it came to this, and it makes IndyCar look really bad. That the management firm and the sponsor pivoted and specifically called out the Indy 500 that, that there was no room at the end, if you will, and that's why they left.
And I also think it is an indictment on the shortage of Indy-only teams.
Yes.
And that's pretty much gone away.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Dreyer and Reinbold's really the only one that's consistent anymore. So the lack of Indy-only teams or May-only teams also hurts of efforts like Katherine Legge in making the race. The full-time teams need to think about the bottom line and not racing against each other to make the race or having extra equipment that could be wrecked and then having to replace it, and the bills go up and up. I get it, but the complete lack of Indy-only teams, which is a byproduct of the system that is in place, hurts efforts like Katherine Legge's.
All right. If you agree or disagree, and I'm sure people will have thoughts on my little rant. We love for you to interact with us. You can always find us. Email us, newtrackrecordpodcast@gmail.com. Email us your questions, comments, rants, concerns, what have you. You can reach us on social media. IndyCar Podcast on Twitter /X, also on Instagram. On Facebook, just search for New Track Record. You can support us via Patreon, patreon.com/NewTrackRecord. Thanks to Xavier and others for their support. And as always, download and listen for free on your favorite podcasting platform, whether that is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Mailbag time, Justin, and a few things to get to.
Yeah.
We'll start revisiting the Katherine Legge thing. Lynn _IndyCar said, this is a big miss by IndyCar, but I can see why owners don't want to add a car to compete against itself. My question, which full-time Rahal car not making the 500 because of Sato?
I mean, that's kind of been the story for Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan, right?
Yeah.
Recently?
I like to think they'll be stronger this year. We shall see. Elsewhere in the mailbag, you had posted, feel like this could be the slogan for our podcast, Tired of Pricks, talking about the Mankind sponsorship, which will also be with Connor Daly, not just for Long Beach, but Detroit and Gateway as well. And Jeremy from HBG said, did someone say Mankind?
That's what I thought when I first saw Mankind, the wrestler.
Yeah. And then you have Lynn saying, great to see Mankind return to Daly's car. Tell this important story. Justin is probably tired of Dixon fans.
No.
Always gets a dig. I love it. I love it. Absolutely love it. Elsewhere on the mailbag, so you had posted about this, and it was a plan, and then it was gone. But we were supposed to get a racetrack in Northeast Indiana, basically our own little thermal, as you said.
Yes.
But that was shot down. Jeremy from HBG saying, that lasted a minute. Might I suggest that there's plenty of land for sale around the Shipshewana area. Still a chance for a Shipshewana Grand Prix. Holding out the cards for
Fingers crossed. So the plan was a bunch of rich people from around here were going to buy a bunch of farmland near the airport here in Northeast Indiana and build what was like a 3.5 mile private track, basically. Mm-hmm. I mean, think thermal, basically, is what it would be. Maybe minus the residences around it, but it would just
no palm trees either.
Yeah, it would be, unless they're inflatable
or mountains.
True. You would have the occasional airplane from the airport as your background, but it was basically going to be a playground for their luxury cars. Mm-hmm. And the outcry of people, both, I think from a variety of areas, people that live nearby to just really maybe taking away some of the farmland or view for a lot of people. A lot of people were against it to the point where there were big billboards, not just signs in people's yards, but big billboards across town.
The interstate, on major, there's one, there was someone put up a sign that was basically part of the farmland across from the GM assembly plant.
Really?
Said stopthetrack.org or whatever.
Yeah.
And I saw another billboard on one of those digital ones on Jefferson, which is a major thoroughfare. So
yeah.
It was heavily opposed.
Heavily opposed. Now, one of the people involved in this proposal was none other than Tom Kelly, formerly of Kelly Racing in the Indy Racing League.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it came to a point where these businessmen looked at it, and take Tom Kelly, for example, and was like, I can't afford to piss off potentially thousands of people that could potentially buy my cars from my dealerships.
True.
So this came apart. This came apart pretty rapidly because the plan was withdrawn earlier this week from the proposers. But I think it was basically a bunch of businessmen that are in need of people wanting their services at their companies that really didn't want to alienate a certain portion of people. It was basically going to be a playground for the rich, and I'm not against that, but plenty of other people were. And I think those investors involved saw that maybe it wasn't the best idea to push this through and then potentially make mad the very people they rely on to purchase their products.
I think I told you when you sent me the original thing, I said, it'll never happen.
But I was thinking smallish. I was thinking, okay, it's going to be like a mile. Like 3.5 miles is a big track.
Very big footprint.
That's a big deal. So it looked cool. What does it do for me? Nothing. I'm never going to be able to take an Aston Martin or whatever out there to race, but drive around at speed. But it was kind of a cool proposal. It was bigger than I thought it was going to be. But if you know anything about anything in rural Indiana, you don't like change. I mean, anytime there's a wind farm proposal in farmland, immense objection. So it's not just the racetrack. It's anything taking away from the rural feel of Indiana and cornfields and farmland.
Probably explains why all the wind turbines around here are across state lines in Ohio.
Literally right across the border in Ohio is where the wind farm starts.
And they're reaping the benefits of it, to be clear.
They absolutely are. But people are very much against wind farms and stuff around this area, even solar farms in farm. Like, nobody cares about farmland until you want to develop farmland. And then all of a sudden it's, you can't do that. So this was less beneficial than alternate energy sources. That's for sure. And it was reflected in the vitriol that came about in terms of attacking the proposal.
I don't even think the whole process was a full month, right?
I don't think so. It came
in terms of when it was announced.
It came quickly. The objections came quickly, and the withdrawal came very quickly. So we can put that to bed.
Racer Mac RTP1 had this to say: it's already a better design than anything Herman Tilke has come up with in the last 15 years. Yes, F1 snobs, I went there. Yeah, well, we'll never know, unfortunately.
Nope.
About that. A couple other mailbag items to get to before we move on to news and notes. And let's see. Talking about Long Beach, and you posted this. It's put up or shut up time for IndyCar and Fox this week. Second biggest race on the schedule. It needs to be presented that way. No graphical errors, no timing and scoring issues, no power losses. This is Long Beach. The working out the King's time is over. And it is, as we discussed. Jeff Cerneski said, I'm confident they'll have everything worked out this weekend, as are we. Lynn_IndyCar said, this is the second crown jewel of IndyCar, and it needs to be treated like it, especially being the 50th anniversary. Hopefully it's a perfect broadcast and a prelude to their 500 telecast. Fingers crossed. Tyler Wong, 65. Absolutely must be a perfect broadcast this weekend. It'll help with all the commercials during the race, being side by side during green flag action. True. Also, thank you for always sending us the TV numbers beyond just the race. We appreciate that. OBX Jody said, it's tough for a TV crew to get in a flow when each race is about a month apart. The schedule is beyond stupid. That's an excellent point.
Well, I mean, month is a bit of a stretch, but these are professionals that seemingly have done this before.
True.
So maybe, to your point, Fox.
But rhythm is important.
True.
No matter what industry.
But I think maybe Fox could have done more preseason, as you mentioned, some dry run, stuff like that. We don't even need to see it, but just going through all of the things you need to do to make sure everything was shored up. It just doesn't feel like they did that.
Even though we know they did a mock broadcast, I think, of a Indy 500 or whatnot. But again, you can't account for everything until you're on site somewhere, right? And I think that's what unfortunately has bit them. New Carter Verone said, Fox presents the IndyCar at Long Beach Gernad Prix.
Let's hope they don't have that obvious of mistake spelling Grand wrong.
Hunter's Way 67 said spot on, and hopefully you're at the race, Steve, and enjoy it. And then Brady BC3 said big anniversary at that. Yes, with the 50th. It was pivotal. I keep saying that word. That's like, pivotal game 5, Marv Albert. It's pivotal that IndyCar get this correct for Long Beach, and then we feel good about everything moving forward. And then Lynn with one other thought on, actually a couple thoughts on hybrids. So Lynn had this: hybrid engines in IndyCar. I have to disagree on your take on hybrid formula. The world's largest automaker is betting big on hybrid. Hybrid's the best of both worlds because of the ability to run electric in city and gas on a road trip, and that's Toyota, which is, again, continued to invest in hybrids. S2000_Moose said about U.S. hybrid sales in 2024, more than 50% of Toyotas were hybrids, so that's backing up what Lynn had to say. 30% of Hondas were hybrids. Both figures are going up. More than 20% of all U.S. vehicles were electrified, meaning either hybrid or full EV. That number is also rising. And F1 recently just turned down, there was talk of them going V10s, and that proposal is set to be rejected, last I saw.
I think there was some discussions supposedly going to happen in Bahrain this weekend, maybe even today, involving that. But no, I appreciate the good points with hybrids and EVs. I think we're just seeing a trend towards going away from hybrids within racing. We know that Toyota and Honda and Japanese auto companies have really doubled down with those things. Not maybe as much here. There are hybrid options, which, Chevy and Ford and all that stuff. It just seems...
Well, Ford has, it started with the EcoBoost, and then they have a big electric fleet.
Yeah.
They bet, the Mustang Mach-E, which is a sweet vehicle.
Yeah.
You have the Lightning truck that Ford has, along with other options. So I think maybe when we talk about hybrid with IndyCar, the issue isn't, hybrid or no hybrid. It's that IndyCar's hybrid tech is so far behind with the battery storage capacity, super capacitor setup. And maybe the real discussion needs to be, if IndyCar stays hybrid going forward, which they say they are, you need to update the tech, and obviously it not be something that just is a device that you somehow shove into the chassis, right? How it's set up now. And maybe that is more the focus. They better have it set up that way where it's not something they have to add additionally and adds a bunch more weight. So we'll see, but 2027, fingers crossed, we'll get some answers.
Hopefully we get some answers.
Well, really 2026 or even end of this year.
I think overall, though, we're all in agreement that the excitement for hybrid technology in auto racing has tempered significantly.
Yes.
For whatever reason, whether that's, we know the technology and now
Is it because the tech has become so advanced?
Is it because they have it perfected and now it's good for road? I don't know. But the fact of the matter that the allure of running a hybrid technology in auto racing doesn't seem to be where it was 5 years ago. Yes. This just shows how behind IndyCar has been to go hybrid tech. That's for sure.
Yeah. If IndyCar was hybrid in 2019 or 2020, I think a lot would be different. But part of it was beyond their control with the pandemic and causing delays. But other part of it is just they were late to the game to begin with. So that's kind of where they're at. All right, that wraps up the mailbag. Time for news and notes and a few things to roll through. First off, good news for Iowa. So Hy-Vee was out, obviously. And Sukup Manufacturing Company, very familiar with this brand. They sponsored the Indy Lights race at Iowa back in the day.
Oh.
So the Sukup 100. But they're a family-owned producer of grain storage, drying, and handling equipment. Think like grain bins.
Oh, okay.
Or that hold feed.
Everybody needs one in Iowa.
Yes. So well-known company in Iowa. Good to see them back with an association, but they will sponsor the doubleheader at Iowa Speedway. And also remember that for the IndyCar weekend, I think Iowa state government allocated $400,000 or something in promotion funds.
Yep.
So this will help. There will still be concerts, not to the level they were before. With Hy-Vee, it'll be more local and emerging talent, not the big names that we saw in the past. But good news, again, still expect this to be down to one race next year. Either way, though, it's always good when a racetrack gets a title sponsor. It's never a bad thing.
And help tremendously. It's not Iowa corn, but it's something.
Yeah, and from talking corn to talking tariffs.
Oh.
Did you see this? President Trump had members of Team Penske at the White House a couple days ago, earlier this week, celebrate the team's achievements, obviously winning the Indy 500, NASCAR title with Joey Logano. Blaney was there as well, and then Felipe Nasr and the members of the IMSA Sports Car Champion team as well. They had Newgarden's car from the Indy 500 on display. Newgarden was there among the IndyCar contingent. Penske has an open invite to IMS for the 500. We'll see if that happens.
You're going to take the beast out on the
perhaps
Indianapolis Motor Speedway like they did at Daytona?
It will be a logistical nightmare getting in if
yeah.
he does go. So I'll be curious. I mean, Penske and Trump are friends. Have been friends for a long time. So I'll be curious how this plays out. Will he come to an IndyCar race? We'll see. Whether it's the Indy 500 or somewhere else. But yeah.
Yeah, logistically, I can't imagine.
No, I can't either. So we'll see.
Yeah. Regardless of your party affiliation, gosh, if you're going to the race and the president of the United States is coming, I just can't imagine what that will look like.
Yeah, how do you get in?
I mean, in terms of all the details of trying to get in with 300,000 plus people. But okay, so Roger Penske was at the White House.
Well,
he wasn't in the picture because people were saying,
yeah, he was not in the picture.
They were because of the tariffs and everything going on, and we won't get into politics, but people were wondering, well, maybe because Roger Penske be mad at. I was like, I don't have time for that. I was like, maybe Roger just had to go to the bathroom and they took a picture. I was like, I don't know.
Maybe Roger took the picture. No, I doubt it.
He probably had one of those disposable Kodak cameras, that he's like, I'll carry this around, take a picture, but. Who knows? But I mean, anytime you get to go to the White House is a cool experience. So it was interesting, and we'll see if President Donald Trump is planning on going to the Indianapolis 500, and hopefully, if he is, there's plenty of advance notice for logistically trying to figure out how that's going to work.
Yes. Now,
could conceivably, how about that? Could conceivably he fly in on Marine One or a helicopter? Would that be?
Yeah, that would make it easier.
I mean, logistically would make it. I just don't know security wise how that works. If it's like we need to, I don't know, securing a perimeter or whatever is easier via vehicle and coming in traditionally as opposed to bringing in a helicopter. I don't know.
Pence was at the 500. Was it 21? When he was VP? So 21?
Or 20, 21 or 22. Was he there for a full crowd?
Or no, it wouldn't. Sorry, it wouldn't have been 21, right? Because that doesn't make sense on the timeline. 2019?
The year before COVID?
Or 18?
Well, one of those, 18 or 19. But that's different than the president of the United States.
Yes.
Sure, significantly. But I would think like if it makes sense, he flies into Indianapolis Airport, then via Air Force One, then takes a helicopter to the track. I don't know, but if it is going to be a thing, I hope it's planned out well in advance.
Oh yeah, for sure. And the other thing is, so Trump was set to be the pace car driver in 2011, but that did not go through. But so he's always kind of danced around it, so we'll see what happens with that. Elsewhere in news and notes, no driver selected for the Cadillac F1 team. Speculation mounting Sergio Perez will be one of the two in the lineup, per the Associated Press. Willow Springs International Raceway, which is in the LA area, they're hoping to attract bigger racing series like IndyCar and IMSA to hold events on the road course. Obviously, we need a lot of updates as there's new ownership there.
Well, we were playing around with this because you could have a quadruple header of Southern California races that barely draw, or at least California races. You could go Laguna Seca, and then you could go to Fontana. No, Fontana.
Not Fontana. Long Beach?
Well, no, what's the Sonoma? Sorry. Sonoma. So you go Sonoma, Laguna Seca, Thermal. What is this? Willow Creek?
Willow Springs. I mean, that's 4 races, 4 weeks, and you buy one ticket for one of them, you get into all 4 because none of them draw. Laguna Seca doesn't draw. Sonoma didn't draw. Thermal, it can't draw. And then this place. I mean, how much would one ticket for? I mean,
I'm just throwing.
We're talking like
trying to get bodies
like $1,000, right? And
but if
it's a weekend GA. I mean, it has to be $1,000.
This sounds great, but
it's never gonna happen.
It's never like. There's a reason IndyCar didn't go to Sonoma. There's a reason why they're barely holding on at Laguna Seca. Thermal is Thermal. I mean, the only race that works in Southern California is Long Beach. It's the only thing.
Yes. A couple other things, Indy 500 related. Parking sold out. Now, obviously, that's IMS official lots parking. There's plenty of parking in neighborhoods all around the track, but Nathan Brown says nearly 2 weeks ahead of the pace last year, nearly a month ahead of 2023. So all things looking positive for close to a sellout for the Indy 500.
That's like, what, 2 weeks in advance the last year?
Yes.
Yeah. It's going to be another huge crowd. Just cross your fingers for good weather.
So true. Some sponsor updates that I talk about on Semi with Nolan Siegel. This weekend, 4 primary races includes Detroit, Gateway, and Road America. Meanwhile, for Connor Daly with Mankind on the car, Detroit and Gateway as well as a primary associate for the rest of the season. So Connor is scraping together sponsorship despite the loss of the polka dot thing with 76 and Cyclone Next Gen Travel Centers. And then now with Mankind, I mean, he's putting together, I think, what should be enough to keep him confident in the seat. Meanwhile, Scott McLaughlin will be back in the meat wagon with Good Ranchers for Barber. And he's going to try to go 3 for 3, make it a three-peat. And he was also at the Masters earlier this week with Ryan Blaney. So cool opportunity for him to be there.
Very much so.
More Indy 500 Fan Fest. So you had Fort Wayne this week at Electric Works. This week, or I guess early next week, they will be in Bloomington, Indiana, 5 to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, April 15th. Upstairs Pub at Nick's English Hut. And I've not heard of this last one, Osteria Rago. It's an Italian place. I've heard of the other two.
Did you get down to there on Tuesday?
I did. Just got some food. I mean, it was a similar setup to last year. The bummer is we couldn't stay for trivia, and that's what I think would have really made the evening for me. But
I would imagine you could just destroy everybody because you're good on Indy 500 trivia.
Everyone says that. I mean, Abby was telling me that too. Like, oh, this would have been, we need to like plan in the future because she had a prior commitment, and I wasn't thinking I'd be able to go. So, she's like, oh, you'll just destroy everyone. I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. I mean, it sounds nice, but
I mean, Donald Davidson, but who is?
Donald Davidson is.
Well, very true. No, I think you'd handle. Was it last year we did the live show down there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, that was. And it was cool to see Doug Bowles down there with some fans and the Borg Warner. And
also down there.
Now, they said they were doing pit stop.
Yeah, so they had a car and there was a guy who would like change a tire.
Okay, so it wasn't.
So I got to see it, but it wasn't like, a car rolling in, stopping in a whole pit crew. But it was just cool to see that.
That's cool.
They had the Fox Sports robot there too.
Is that what the tall thing is? Cletus?
Yeah. I forgot his name, Cletus.
I saw the picture. I didn't make a connection, but that was kind of cool to see.
Yeah, it was cool to see Cletus in person. Abby was like, what's that? I'm like, oh, that's the Fox Sports robot.
That was one of your life's goals, to meet Cletus, the
I guess.
Fox Sports robot.
I guess so.
Check that off the list.
Rolling on through news and notes, McLaren will be participating all 3 legs of the Triple Crown in 2027. They'll compete in the 24 Hours of Le Mans. We assume they'll still be in IndyCar and obviously still in F1. So They also only race seem to have accomplished all three in history, per Nathan Brown. So looking to go back-to-back. Speaking of McLaren, Pato O'Ward had a visit with the Los Angeles Chargers. Looks like there was a kids group. Did some drills. Nathan Brown teased a IndyStar story for that. That'll be cool to check that out. Racer, which obviously announced the Racer Network recently, has now announced Racer Podcast, launching Racers Unchained, with Paul Tracy.
Oh, that's going to be a good listen.
Right? For sure. Already looking forward to that as someone who one time served as Paul Tracy's Uber driver, unofficially.
That's right.
In St. Louis several years back. Looking forward to that. You have NBC, which of course had last year's Indy 500. Indy 44 found this, but Outstanding Live Special Non-Championship Event, the 108th Indianapolis 500 on NBC and Peacock, nominated for a Sports Emmy. So good luck to the crew for that. And let's see, a couple other notes. A new director of the series formerly known as Indy Lights, Kirk Dooley, previously served as the Skip Barber Racing School COO, Marine veteran, IndyCar Chief of Staff 2015 and 16, Director of Event Operations at IMS 2016 to 2020. So a lot of experience, and they found a replacement after the previous choice did not work out.
Did not. Difference of opinions. But they are back in action at Barber, correct?
Yes, I believe so. Not at Long Beach.
Right.
Which I think they last raced there, was it like 2011, 2012? I remember either Newgarden or Daly won a race there.
Okay.
Way back in the day, in lights. So, and then Nathan Brown had a good article talking about the 2026 schedule. We touched on some stuff last week that Marshall Pruitt had put together, and just a few more things that tie some loose ends, explaining kind of how things work with the schedule and why dates are the way they are. Thermal sounds like it could go either way at this point. But Mexico City, more positive notes. So Brown said that Miles told him last month he continues to be very bullish regarding Mexico City. Believes we'll get it done. We can be racing there in 2026. Deal likely to be struck for an IndyCar stop, or won't be struck until the track operator gets through the NASCAR weekend in mid-June and works through negotiations with Liberty Media, which runs F1, on a possible extension beyond 2025. So that's the holdup there. And then so you have St. Pete, Arlington, Mexico City, Long Beach, early portion of the schedule. They want to eliminate, the gaps in the schedule as well during that time. So we'll see what becomes. There wasn't really anything on thermal either way that I could get a read on this. But then this was interesting in terms of the date for Mexico City. So Brown says the Catholic Mexican culture, countrywide celebrations the week leading into Easter, which is April 5th, 2026, which is Palm Sunday. So the weekend prior is typically filled with festivities. Hosting a race either weekend would be untenable. So that's why it eliminates March 29th or April 5th. And then April 12th is the option because 12 hours of Sebring.
Is that the 19th?
Is that weekend as well?
Which
I think so.
I'm kind of like, I know that certain teams have been vocal before about not scheduling race weekends the same as Sebring. I'm with a lot of people and just be like, look, IndyCar needs, if it makes sense, if a weekend makes sense for a track.
Actually, no, that would be the weekend before, so like March 21st.
Okay, but
so that's off the table as well.
I know, but it's like at some point
we keep hearing April 12th,
which is traditionally Long Beach, right? Second weekend.
Yeah, it's second or third.
So you're going to go Mexico City, then Long Beach?
I think so.
Back-to-back weekends? Basically, what I gathered from the story is there may still be a need for thermal to avoid a big break between St. Pete and Mexico City. And I guess if it fits, it makes sense. Well, you got Arlington in there, too. That'll be what, March 16th? 15th. So we'll see. Could it start St. Pete? Would it go St. Pete, Arlington, Thermal, Mexico City, Long Beach?
And then you would have at least a week off after Long Beach, and then, go to Barber, and then it's May.
So could that be proposed? I don't want to go to thermal for a points paying race if IndyCar doesn't have to, but if my options are a 3 or 4 week gap or thermal, of course it makes sense to go thermal. But as that article also said, then you get into June and July, that's going to be a cluster because of World Cup.
Correct. And a nugget that I didn't know, but with the expansion of the World Cup in terms of the field, there will be more group stage matches. There are more teams. It's 48 teams instead of 32?
32, yeah.
But I didn't know this, and this is where Toronto's impacted. But Toronto and the stadium for the Toronto FC, whatever they are in the MLS, is hosting group stage matches, and that stadium is a part of the complex for
we see that
the racetrack
on overhead shots
for
Toronto.
Exhibition Place for IndyCar at Toronto. So keep that in mind.
And if you're any listeners thinking what takes priority, World Cup or IndyCar, it's World Cup.
Yeah.
And it's not close.
It's not close.
Okay, so if Toronto has to choose, it's choosing World Cup. Now, those games have already been assigned. I thought even like last year, they have every game already scheduled because it is a combination United States, Canada that's hosting the World Cup next June and July. And so those sites have been assigned and the games at each site have been assigned. So those aren't changing. Now, the good thing is IndyCar can then dance around it, but it's going to be up to Toronto to figure out if it's manageable, or next year it's going to say we're going to have to take a year off from hosting a street race because we have World Cup in town.
And again, it's not because it conflicts, like you said, date-wise. So BMO Field, that's the soccer stadium, they'll host 5 group stage matches per round starting June 12th, round of 32 match July 2nd. Now, obviously, Toronto is usually July 19th, 20th, 21st, somewhere in that range. The issue is, can the track build happen in a timely manner that doesn't impact World Cup things? There's no return on a request for comment. And then Portland and Laguna Seca, which obviously have struggled to draw crowds. They're nearing the end of their current deals, as we mentioned last week. And he said progress continues to be made on a potential street race for Denver in 2027.
Do you feel like the Denver street race replaces Portland?
Yes.
Or Laguna Seca?
It replaces one, if not both. I think you really hope you keep Toronto, right? But
right. And then
if this is just a one-off thing, but even that's like devastating to a promoter, unless Green Savory can step in and promote Denver, and
that's true,
and in turn add an event. Granted, year one of a street race is very expensive.
It could be a losing proposition, but again, it doesn't sound like Denver's going to happen until 2027.
Correct.
It just, from everything we've read, it's like nobody likes Portland. The paddock doesn't like Portland. And remember the big cry, United or IndyCar, they got to get in the Pacific Northwest. They do, and there's just a lack of excitement. I think there's been a lack of good promotion and support for the race in and around Portland, and I think there's been an apathy or a sense of apathy from fans.
When you have
people showing up,
they got Formula E a couple years ago.
Which you say Formula E, the on track visual is so much better.
Correct. They just have more banners, and signage around the track. I think that's part of the issue.
Now, was it sponsorship banners or series banners? Okay,
sponsorship and series, and then when you have Xfinity Series there as well. I mean that. Yeah. So they have other top or close to top level events. That's a challenge as well. All right, wrapping things up, some sad news. Shige Hattori, which made a couple of Indy 500 starts, 2002 and 2003, passed away in a car crash just a few days ago. 2-time Indy Lights winner in 1998, 33 IndyCar Series events over multiple seasons. You mentioned the 500 starts, just 61 years old. He was a Truck Series team owner currently, but the crash was Saturday in Huntersville, North Carolina. So a lot of people had a lot of positive things to say about him, not just IndyCar, but NASCAR related as well, but he will definitely be missed.
Definitely. Unfortunate. It was a very big deal within IndyCar, both as a driver and an owner for a couple decades ago, but was a big part of the paddock and unfortunate to see.
So we move on, and no tweets of the week, so we'll just get to our random split air driver of the week.
I don't know if this guy wrote his Wikipedia, but this Parker Johnstone sounds like the most interesting man in the world. Parker Johnstone, who raced in kart from 1994 to 1997, had 48 starts. Let's start with his racing career. Let's start with his kart career. He raced the 1994-1995 seasons with CompTech Racing. He was a road course specialist. In his oval debut, the 1995 Michigan 500, he qualified on pole, the new track record at the Michigan 500 in 1995. It also gave Honda its first ever champ car pole. He dominated the race, ended up with a mechanical problem, did not win. He also set the closed course world speed record at Michigan in excess of 238 miles an hour in 1995.
Wow.
So he then moved up, ran the full season in 1996 for CompTech. His best finish of his career, second at Long Beach that year. In 1997, he raced the full season for Team Green and had a fifth at Long Beach as his best finish. But this is when it gets really interesting for Parker Johnstone. He ended up retiring, and maybe some people remember him as the color analyst for ABC ESPN's coverage of kart racing / IndyCar. He then was a pit reporter and worked as a pit analyst in NHRA for ESPN. He then left broadcasting to oversee a Honda dealership in Oregon. He did some SCCA competition as well. Here's what's crazy. Parker Johnstone III, an accomplished musician. He was the principal trumpet of the International Youth Orchestra touring Europe, playing with Herbert von Karajan, apparently is a big deal, and the Berlin Philharmonic. Famed pianist Van Cliburn, instead of attending Juilliard, he went to the engineering school at Cal Berkeley, received his degree in 1982. So he picked Cal Berkeley, which is no slouch for engineering or anything, quite frankly, instead of the Juilliard School of Music. Okay. Also, in terms of, he is also an Eagle Scout. He is an instrumentalist, obviously, a commercial certified flight instructor pilot, has competed and won aerobatic competitions. He is scuba certified. He has appeared in over 50 TV commercials as well as performed as a stuntman in the movie Speed. He has competed in triathlons and cycling races. And he lives in Wilsonville, Oregon, and has been on the Parks and Rec Board for 5 years. I think he wrote his own Wikipedia.
Yeah, he's also a member of the Screen Actors Guild and the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, or AFTRA, which is like the union for that.
So not only, like, when you start talking about Parker Johnstone, racing seems secondary to his accomplishments, which is amazing. You know, He set the closed track speed record at Michigan going 238 miles an hour. But the big story is he played with the Berlin Philharmonic and as a trumpeter and could have went to the Juilliard School of Music.
Went to Cal Berkeley for engineering.
Yeah, ho-hum. It was interesting, this too. He raced in IMSA for several years, won the IMSA Camel Lights Sports Car Championship. You may know it as, what is it now? These WeatherTech series. It was previously sponsored by Camel Lights. Simpler times. We talk about Marlboro money. IMSA was getting Camel money. But he won the 24 Hours of Daytona twice, won the 12 Hours of Sebring, and the 100-kilometer Suzuka event in Japan.
1,000 kilometer.
Yes, 1,000 kilometer, excuse me. He left professional sports car racing, having set the all-time IMSA race win record at 54 wins. That was before he started doing open wheel racing.
It's wild. I remember the name, but I didn't know anything about it.
I kept thinking we did Parker Johnstone, and then I was like, well, let me remind myself if we did him, and started reading his bio. I said, absolutely not. We have not done Parker Johnstone. So overall, 48 race starts between 1994 and 1997, 0 wins, 1 pole, that aforementioned pole at Michigan in 1995, second at Long Beach in 1996, his best overall finish. He resides in Oregon. He is 64 years old, still with us. The amazing Parker Johnstone, man of many talents, this week's Random Split Era Driver of the Week.
I learned so much. I had heard of him, but I learned so much that I did not know going in to that. A couple of notes we forgot to get to on the mailbag. Apparently, Jay Fry had F1 offers, but obviously chose.
Now, do you think those were
with Ray Hall
team offers or series offers?
I have no clue.
Me neither. Very interesting.
And then you mentioned about Portland. Pruitt said in the Racer.com mailbag, for my conversations with the paddock, nobody wants to lose Laguna. Almost everybody would welcome farewelling Portland. I was in an interesting spot where his presence on the schedule is heavily underwritten by sponsors, Hy-Vee in particular, which had the bid musical acts. If there's any disruption in funding, reverting to a single race would be expected. Obviously, they got the sponsor announced right after this mailbag, I think, was published, but something to keep an eye on for the future.
All right. Well, we talk about the incessant talk about OEMs and international races. Future schedules is always a go-to in terms of rumors and what could potentially happen. But I feel like in 2026, outside of the 100% guarantee, obviously with Arlington, the most likely change is dropping a race at Iowa as of right now.
I would think. I would agree with that. All right. I think we covered it all and then some. For Justin Kinney, I am Caleb Hatch. We'll be back next week to recap the 50th Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach right here on New Track Record Podcast.